In this video, we're going to be creating a real-time currency converter using the Django API, in which you can convert from one currency to another currency in the world. So let's check this out. I want to convert from that currency to this currency. So I'm just going to input the amount, then we click on convert and see the result. So you see, it converted it and it gave us the answer. So let's get started to see how you can do this. Alright, welcome back. So we are going to be using the exchange-rate-api.com. So if you don't have an account, you can create an account and obtain an API key. So this is my API key, and I'm going to deactivate this API key immediately we are done with this video. So we are going to be sending our request to this server and they'll be giving us a response. So what we are going to do, I already have it all planned out here. So now we're going to be sending a request to this URL, to this endpoint with our API code, in order to get a list of all the currencies they support. That's a list of all the currencies they have around the world. You can see they have the AED, AFN, AAL, AMD. So we're going to be sending a request to this endpoint to retrieve all this currency, so that we can display it in our browser like this. You can see a list of currency that I'm retrieving them from that endpoint. So let me copy my API key and get started. So back to my VS Code. Alright, so in the views, I'm going to define something called API key, and that'll be equals to this. So this is my API key and I'll be using to make our requests to their server. So we're going to come here, we're going to copy this endpoint so that we can retrieve all the currency they support. So let's create another variable called currency URL should be equals to this. So we're going to replace this your API key with our API key. That is this variable that is containing our API key. So we're going to have API key. We're going to be using the F method on it. So we're going to make a request to this URL with our API key in order to get a list of all the currency that they support. So we're going to say currency request should be equals to, so first we're going to import request, the one that it ends with S. So when we import it, we're going to say request.get. So we're going to make a request to the currency URL. So when we check our documentation, the exchange rate API documentation, they said this endpoint will return a JSON array of all currently supported currency. So it's going to return an array. So that's the response is going to return. So we're going to have another variable called currency response should be equals to currency request. So that is the, after making this request, we have to get the response. Currency request dot JSON, and we have to import JSON. So there's something wrong with this. So I think we need to install request. So say pip install request. So we have to install the request in order to be able to access it here. Okay, so it has been installed, because that's what we're going to be to make our API response. Now since we have the response, let's try and print the response in our browser or in our terminal here when we make a request to this server. So print currency response. Okay, so let me run my server, see the API, then let me run the server. So now let's check our console. It has returned a list of all the currency they support. Now let's head back to our documentation. We can see it has an array of supported codes. So in these supported codes, we are just going to be retrieving the first element in it. That is the short form of the currency. So in our browser, we are going to say currency should be equals to, so we're going to say currency response dot get So we're going to say supported codes. Supported codes. That is this that we have here. Supported codes. And since this is in small letter, so supported codes, and it is an array. So we can now loop through this currency. We're going to loop through it in order to get the first element that are there. So we're going to have, let's change this to supported codes. Supported codes. So now we're going to retrieve the first element in these supported codes. So let's create another variable now called the currency. It should be equals to, so we're going to have our array. We're going to have, let's create a variable called code 0. That's to retrieve the first element in it. So for code in supported codes, so we are looping through this supported code to retrieve the first element there, since the computer starts counting from 0. So let us also print the supported code, print the currency. So we're going to print the currency in our browser again. So let me close this and make a request again in my server. So let's head on to this and refresh it. So now we can go back to our browser. So we see it has returned a list of all the currency, just the first name of the currency. So this currency we are going to be displaying our HTML code so that the user can exchange or convert from one currency to another currency around the world. So this currency, we are going to pass it into a dictionary. So let's create a context dictionary. We are going to pass, let's give it currency. So we're going to pass it into currency. And I'm going to pass in the context to our home.html. We're going to pass the context here. Context. So now, since the context is now home.html, we can retrieve it now. So back to our home, we're going to say we need to have a form. So we want to have select, and in this select we want to loop through our currency. So we're going to say for currency in currency, then we're going to end for. So for currency in currency, what are we going to be displaying? We're going to have our option, and what we're going to be displaying is currency. So let's go back to our browser and refresh. So now we can see it has a select option with a list of all the currency. So let's have an each one here which says currency converter. So refresh, you can see currency converter. So we're just going to duplicate this into 2. So we have this here also. I'm also going to have a span here that says 2. So let's give this a style and change the font size to about 18 pixels. So when we refresh, we can see, so this is the currency they are picking, so they'll be converting to this currency. So I'm also going to have an input for them to be able to input the amount they'll be converting to. So I'm going to say input, then the placeholder should be please input amount to convert. So when we refresh, we can see it there. So let's just shorten it to amount to convert. So we're going to go back to our documentation. So in our documentation, we can see we can make a request to the API to perform the exchange for us and then return a response. So this is the documentation. So we can make a request to this URL containing the base currency and the currency we want to convert to, then the amount we wish to convert. So it will return the exchange rate from the base code. So when we make a request to this API, to this endpoint, it's going to return a result like this in JSON. We are going to have the conversion rate and also the conversion result. So we're going to copy this, and we're even going to test it using the API key. So back to my code. So if request dot method is equals to post, that is, we want to retrieve the currency they want to convert from and the currency they want to convert to. So we're going to give this select a name of from currency. So that's the currency they want to convert from, and the second one to currency. So we're going to change the option to a value. We're going to change it to currency. So the value will be currency. Then also this option value also will be currency. So back to our views. If request of method is equals to 2, so I'm going to say from currency should be equals to request dot post dot get. So what is it getting? We're going to call it by its name. That is the select. We're going to call the from currency. So we're also going to retrieve the to currency. So we're going to have this to be to currency. So now we're going to make a request to this endpoint. So I've copied the URL. So I'm going to have my endpoint URL. Endpoint URL should be equals to this. So we're going to replace this your API key with our API key, which we've defined earlier on. This is it. So we're going to replace it with our API key. And we should not forget to be using the F method on it also. So this arrow, that is the base URL, we're going to replace it with the from currency. Then this also, we're going to replace it with the to currency. So we need to retrieve the amount the user also is converting. That is this our input. So we have to give it a name. So I'm going to give it a name of amount. So back to our views, we're also going to retrieve it. So amount should be equals to, so this is the amount we're going to be retrieving, amount from our HTML, and we're going to be adding it to the endpoint URL. So this is going to be amount. That is the amount the user inputs. So now we're going to make a request to this endpoint using all the data we've gotten. So we're going to say endpoint request should be equals to request dot get, and we're going to make a request to the endpoint URL. So when we make a request like that, it's going to return a JSON response like this that will contain the conversion results and the conversion rate. So we're going to say endpoint response should be equals to endpoint request dot JSON. So it's returning a JSON response. So in this JSON response now, we're going to retrieve the results we have from it. So we're going to have results should be equals to endpoint response, and what we are retrieving is the conversion results. So what this is going to do is going to check the response and look for any variable with conversion results and get it. So now that we have the result, we need to pass it to our HTML so that when the user make a request, we're going to return the user back to our HTML. So we're still going to return render. I'm going to pass in the request, then the base / home.html. So this is the home.html here. So we're going to create another context dictionary here. That is the context. So this will be equals to, now I'm going to pass the results into it. Should be result. So this should be in quotation. So now we will now pass it into our HTML context. So like this, we can be able to access this result in our HTML. So when we go back to HTML, we're not going to check if the result actually exists using the if statement in the Django. So we're going to say if result, then now we're going to end if. So what will, if there's result, we're now going to be displaying the result in h1, in the h1 tag result. We need to have a button here. We've not put our button that will trigger the conversion. So this amount, this is a placeholder. So I'll go to our under input that has a type of submit, and the value will be convert. Also in our form, we need to specify the method to be post. Then we're going to include our cross-site request forgery token. Also. Now let's quickly convert from the Naira currency to the USD currency. So let me input the amount to convert, 600, and I click on convert. Wow, so it said there's an error. It's expecting a parameter that is missing. So let's go back to our code and head on to our views and check. We have the from currency, the to currency. Okay, sorry, this is a mistake here. This should be and month should be equals to request.post.get amount. That was an error. So now let's refresh our browser and try again. So the Naira currency, to the USD currency. So we want to convert 600. So we click on convert. It's going to return. So from 600 naira to USD is 0.36948 USD. So we also see that we discovered that our currency are missing when we redirected it. So in our views, we are going to pass in the currency also. So we're going to have currency, should be currency, then we have a comma here, so we can check it again. This time around, let's use $1 to Naira. So the Naira currency. So when we click on convert, so we can see $1 to Naira is 1625.817. Also, you can retrieve other variables you want. You can retrieve the conversion rate, the target code, the base code, etc., and make your code look more clean and fancy. I'm just trying to show you how the backend works. So please, if you've not subscribed to my YouTube channel, don't forget to subscribe and also click the notification bell. You can check out my video on the Django CRUD operation right at the top. Thank you.